In hearts of men a sense of deity dwells, engraved the truth within their very core, not taught by schools, but where existence dwells. As age advances, it does not deplore, nor fades the sense of God a constant guide, though skeptics scoff and strive to close its door. Unyielding conscience walks right by their side. Despite their grins, a torment lies concealed, their mockery a cloak that cannot hide. O'Grillis' tale by Plutarch's quill revealed, a pig transformed, a lesson strong and clear. Without religion, souls in woe are veiled. But worship God, transcendence drawing near, a beacon bright, a path to higher spheres. With purpose found, no more to doubt or fear. Welcome back to my Fortress of Theology. I'm Jonathan, the Cage Stage Crusader. And today I'm finishing up Chapter 3 of Book 1 in my pilgrimage to John Calvin's Institute of Christian Religion. So let's get straight into it. Book 1, Chapter 3, Section 3 reads, all men of sound judgment will therefore hold that a sense of deity is indelibly engraven on the human heart, and that this belief is naturally engendered in all and thoroughly fixed, as it were, in our very bones, strikingly attested by the consummacy of the wicked, who, though they struggle furiously, are unable to extricate themselves from the fear of God. Though Diagoras and others of like stamp make themselves merry with whatever has been believed in all ages concerning religion, and Dionysus scoffs at the judgment of heaven, it is but a Sardonian grin, for the worm of conscience, keener than burning steel, is gnawing them within. I do not say with Cicero that errors wear out by age, and that religion increases and grows better day by day. For the world, as will be shortly seen, labors as much as it can to shake off all knowledge of God, and corrupts his worship in innumerable ways. I only say that, when the stupid hardness of heart, which the wicked eagerly court as a means of despising God, becomes enfeebled, the sense of deity, which of all things they wished most to be extinguished, is still in vigor, and now and then breaks forth. Whence we infer that this is not a doctrine which is first learned at school, but one as to which every man is, from the womb, his own master, one which nature herself allows no individual to forget, though many, with all their might, strive to do so. Moreover, if all are born and live for the express purpose of learning to know God, and if the knowledge of God, in so far as it fails to produce this effect, is fleeting and vain, it is clear that all those who do not direct the whole thoughts and actions of their lives to this end failed to fulfill the law of their being. They did not escape the observation, even philosophers, for it is of the very thing which Plato meant when he taught, as he often does, that the chief good of the soul consists in resemblance to God, i.e., when, by means of knowing him, it is wholly transformed into him. Thus Gryllus also, in Plutarch, reasons most skilfully, when he affirms that if once religion is banished from the lives of men, they not only in no respect excel, but are in many respects much more wretched than the brutes, since being exposed to so many forms of evil, they continually drag on a troubled and restless existence. The only thing, therefore, which makes them superior is the worship of God, through which alone they aspire to immortality. In that section from John Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion, he talks about how most people naturally believe in a higher power, like a God, deep within their hearts. This belief isn't something we learn from school or books, but it's something we're born with. Even those who denied the existence of a higher power still have a sense of it, and they can't escape a feeling that there's something greater out there. Calvin mentions that even when people try to ignore this belief, their conscience reminds them of it. This is why some people who make fun of religion or deny it still feel uneasy inside. Calvin points out that this belief is like a part of us. No matter how hard people try, they can't fully get rid of it. He also talks about how our purpose in life is connected to knowing and understanding this higher power. If we don't seek to know and understand it, we're missing out on an essential part of what it means to be human. Philosophers like Plato recognize that knowing about this higher power can change us for the better, making us more like it. Kelvin concludes by saying that without a connection to this higher power through religion, humans would be much more miserable and lost. Believing in and worshiping this higher power gives humans a way to rise above the difficulties of life and even the possibility of living forever. Now let's break down this passage and what Calvin is saying in more detail. We can see within this text 9 points for our consideration. Point 1, universality of belief in deity. All men of sound judgment will therefore hold that a sense of deity is indelibly engraven on the human heart. A belief that a divine being is naturally inherent in human nature. This belief is universally present in people of rational judgment, and it's fundamental conviction that's deeply rooted within every individual. Point 2, the inherent belief in God, and that this belief is naturally engendered in all and thoroughly fixed, as it were, in our very bones. The belief in God is not an acquired knowledge, but is naturally produced within every person. This belief is so ingrained that it seems to be an inherent aspect of human nature, so deeply entrenched that it can be likened to a part of our very being. Point 3, wickedness and fear of God is strikingly attested by the constancy of the wicked, who, though they struggle furiously, are unable to extricate themselves from the fear of God. Even those who deny or rebel against God cannot escape a deep seated fear or awareness of a higher power. The wicked may resist, but they cannot eliminate the innate sense of accountability to a divine presence. Point 4, unshakable conscience. Though Diagras and others of like stamp make themselves merry with whatever has been believed in all, turning religion, and Dionysus scoffs at the judgment of heaven, it is but a Sardonian grin. Even skeptics and mockers of religious beliefs are haunted by their conscience. Their attempts to ridicule religion are overshadowed by the profound moral struggle within them. Comparison to a Sardonian grin emphasizes the underlying torment and inner conflict. Point 5, persistence of the sense of deity. I do not say with Cicero that errors wear out by age and that religion increases and grows better day by day. The sense of the divine endures despite efforts to suppress it. The hardness of heart and the wicked cultivate cannot fully extinguish the innate sense of God's existence. This sense occasionally resurfaces even in those who strive to deny it. Point 6, innate knowledge of God. Once we infer that this is not a doctrine which is first learned at school, but one as to which every man is from the womb his own master. The belief in God is not a taught doctrine, it is an inherent aspect of human nature. Every individual possesses an innate understanding of God's existence from birth. Even as people try to suppress or forget it, the knowledge persists. Point 7, purpose of human life. Moreover, if all are born and live for the express person of learning to know God, the primary purpose of human existence is to come to know God. Those who fail to pursue this knowledge fail to fulfill their essential purpose. The pursuit of knowing God is integral to a meaningful life. Point 8, transformation through knowledge of God. This did not escape the observation even of philosophers, for it is the very thing which Plato meant. Philosophers such as Plato recognized the transformative power of God. The ultimate good for the soul lies in becoming more like God through knowledge. Knowledge of God has the potential to bring about a profound inner change. Point 9, necessity of religion for human excellence. Thus, Gryllus, also in Plutarch, reasons most skillfully when he affirms that if once religion is banished from the lives of men, the absence of religion leads to human misery and wretchedness. Religion distinguishes humans from animals, providing a path to transcending suffering. Worshipping God is the essential factor that elevates human existence and grants them the possibility of immortality. Now, let's break down each point much more deeply. Point 1, the universality of belief in deity. That all men of sound judgment will therefore hold that a sense of deity is indelibly engraven in the human heart. In simple terms, John Calvin is saying that most people with common sense believe that there's a sense of a higher power, like a God, that is deeply ingrained in our hearts. It's like an idea that's always been there. Well, let's break this down with everyday examples and connect it to relevant passages in the Bible. there's a sense of wonder. Think about when you look up at the night sky filled with stars. You might feel a sense of awe and wonder. You might wonder how all those stars got there, and if there's something greater behind it all. This feeling is a bit like the belief in a higher power. Even if you've never learned about gods or religion in general, you might still feel that there's something amazing and powerful out there that's beyond our understanding. Some relevant verses that speak about this is Romans chapter 1, verse 20, where the Bible talks about the sense of the divine being evident in the world around us. Where it says, for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world, in things that have been made, so they are without excuse. This verse is saying that just by looking at the world and the things in it, we can see evidence of God's power and divine nature. It's like a natural instinct within us to recognize that there's something greater behind the beauty and complexity of creation. So when Kelvin talks about the sense of deity engraven on the human heart, he's highlighting the idea that this belief in a higher power is something we're born with, and it's something we can see in the world around us. It's a bit like that feeling of wonder and awe you get when you see something truly amazing and realize that there's more to it than meets the eye. In point two, an inherent belief in God, and that this belief is naturally engendered in all and thoroughly fixed, as it were, in our very bones. To put it simply, John Calvin is explaining that the idea of believing in God isn't something we learn from others. It's more like something already built into us. This belief in God is so deep within us that it's like a natural part of who we are. Uh, like trusting your senses. Imagine you're walking in a forest and you suddenly hear a rustling in the bushes. Your instinct might tell you that it could be an animal nearby. You didn't need anyone to teach you to be cautious. It's something that's just there in your mind, a natural reaction to the situation. Similarly, the idea of God's existence is also something that feels like it's just there deep within us. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, where he says, he has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. This is where the Bible acknowledges the sense of something bigger is within us. This verse talks about how God has placed a sense of eternity in our hearts, a feeling that there's something beyond just what we see and know. It's like an inherent understanding that there's more to life than what meets the eye. So when Calvin talks about this belief being thoroughly fixed, as it were, in our very bones, he means that it's so deeply ingrained in us that it's almost a natural part of us who we are, much like how our instinct to be cautious in a forest is just a part of us. It's like an inner sense that there's a higher power at play, even if we can't fully explain it. On to point three, wickedness and fear of God. Or Calvin says it's strikingly attested by consummation of the wicked, who, though they struggle furiously, are unable to extricate themselves from the fear of God. So that, even those who deny or rebel against God cannot escape a deep-seated fear or awareness of a higher power. The wicked may resist, but they cannot eliminate the innate sense of accountability to the divine presence. In simpler terms, John Calvin is talking about how even people who don't believe in God or do bad things can't completely get rid of the feeling that there's a higher power watching over them. Imagine you're at home alone and you suddenly feel like someone is watching you. Even if you know you're alone and there's no one there, that eerie feeling doesn't go away easily. It's like a sense that something or someone is still there even when you can't see them. Similarly, Calvin is saying that even if people don't believe in God, they can't fully shake off the sense that they're being watched or held accountable for their own actions. Like, say you're walking around the office one day and you see a stack of money on the table. You may be tempted to take it, but you also have this like sense in the back of your mind, like, is there someone watching me? Maybe there's like a hidden camera somewhere to test me or something. It's that innate sense of God within us telling us that, like, stealing is incredibly wrong. That's what gives us that feeling that there might be like a hidden camera watching us. I know that's happened to me plenty of times. I've had like so many opportunities to just steal money or things that are interested, and there's always just this thing at the back of my mind, like there's a camera watching me. Somebody left this stuff out there in order to like see who's honest around the office or something. There's always just this really paranoid thought, like if I take this, I know I'm gonna get caught. Like I'm not gonna get away with this. Somebody's watching me, and it's because there's this innate sense of God within all of us that makes us like that, where we just like our sense of guilt is almost like that hidden camera. We think of a hidden camera watching us. In Psalm 53:1, uh, the Bible acknowledges a sense of accountability to a higher power, where it says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, doing abominable iniquity. There are none who do good." This verse talks about those who deny the existence of God. It's not saying they don't have a feeling that God exists, but rather they suppress or ignore that feeling. Deep down, they know there's something greater, but they try to push it away. So when Calvin talks about the wicked being unable to extract themselves from the fear of God, he means that even those who deny God can't completely get rid of that feeling of being watched or held accountable. It's like the feeling of being watched when you're alone. It's hard to shake off, no matter how much you might try to ignore it. Which leads naturally into point four, the unshakable conscience. The Diagoras and others of like Stamp make themselves merry with whatever has been believed in all ages concerning religion and Dionysus. Scoffs at the judgment of heaven, it is but a Sardonian grin. Where he points out even skeptics and mockers of religious beliefs are haunted by their conscience. Attempts to ridicule religion are overshadowed by the profound moral struggle within them. And the comparison to a Sardonian grin emphasizes the underlying torment and inner conflict. To put it simply, John Calvin is saying that even when people make fun of religion or deny its beliefs, they still have a nagging feeling of guilt deep within them. It's like they can't escape their own conscience. Uh, let's break this down and explain some of the historical background behind the phrase Sardonian grin, along with some relevant Bible verses. Imagine you tell a little lie to avoid getting into trouble. Even if others don't know about it, you might still feel guilty inside. That feeling nags at you, and you might even find it hard to enjoy what you're doing because you know you did something wrong. This feeling is a lot like what Calvin is talking about. Even when people mock religion or act like they don't care, they can't fully escape that inner sense of right and wrong. Now, the phrase Sardonian grin refers to a sinister smile or grin, often seen in situations where someone is trying to hide their true feelings, especially negative ones. The phrase originates from the Sardonian plant Sardonian, which was believed to cause a smile before killing those who consumed it. So, a Sardonian grin symbolizes a deceptive smile that conceals a darker reality. A perfect example of this would be looking at Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. No matter how much of a cheerful grin he tries to put on his face, there's just something innately sinister and dark and malevolent in that look on his face. It's very creepy. Like the guy is like a modern day Caligula, Nero, just completely insane tyrant. The guy is pure evil. And all you have to do is look at what he's doing in the Canada. It's just, oh my God, I hate this country so much. He has completely trashed everything. We have no civil liberties. None. There is not a single civil liberty in Canada. Not one. Unless you count like perverse acts of sexual depravity or murdering children still in the womb. Those are the only civil liberties we are allowed in Canada. You can engage in whatever sexual depravity you want and you can murder children. That's it. Those are the only civil liberties enshrined and protected in law in Canada. We have no rights, none whatsoever. And you get this example of a Sardonian grin where Trudeau comes out and he starts talking about how like he believes in human rights and civil liberties and all this other crap. He's just lying constantly. It's just, oh my God, the guy's got to be demonically possessed or he's like a raging narcissistic psychopath. It's just, oh my God, the guy, this country is so evil. So let's get to some Bible verses. Romans 2 verses 14 and 15, where uh, the Holy Spirit speaking through Paul recognizes the power of conscience, where he says, "For when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do what the law requires, they are a law to themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them." This verse points out that even those who don't have the religious law still have a sense of right and wrong written on their hearts. Their conscience either accuses them when they do wrong or excuses them when they do right. So when Calvin talks about a Sardonian grin, he means that even though some people mock religion with a deceptive smile, they can't hide the inner conflict within them. It's like that guilt you might feel after telling a lie. It's hard to completely hide, no matter how much you might pretend it doesn't bother you. The only exception seems to be Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who has never once said a single true thing in his life. The guy can't even say good morning and order a cup of coffee without lying. Point five, persistence of the sense of deity. I do not say with Cicero that errors wear out by age and that religion increases and grows better day by day. The sense of the divine endures despite efforts to suppress it. The hardness of heart and the wicked cultivate cannot fully extinguish the innate sense of God's existence. The sense occasionally resurfaces even in those who strive to deny it. Kelvin is explaining that the feeling of a higher power doesn't go away over time, and it doesn't necessarily get weaker as people grow older. Even if some people try to ignore it, that sense of the divine presence still remains. Imagine you have a leaky faucet at home. You ignore it for a while, hoping the problem will go away on its own, but over time the leak doesn't stop. It persists, sometimes even getting worse. Similarly, Calvin is saying that the sense of the divine being is like that leaky faucet. Doesn't disappear with time. People might try to ignore it or deny it, but the feeling is still there. In Psalm 19, verse 1, the Bible is acknowledging the persistence of the sense of the divine in the world around us, where it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork." This verse suggests that even if people try to ignore or deny the existence of God, the beauty and complexity of the world around them will point to a divine creator. It's like a constant reminder that doesn't fade away. So when Calvin talks about the innate sense of God's existence, he means that even when people harden their hearts to try to suppress the feeling, it doesn't fully disappear. It's like that leaky faucet that won't stop dripping. It's a persistent reminder that can't easily be ignored. And sometimes even those who deny it might have moments when the feeling resurfaces, just like how the faucet might occasionally drip even if you try to ignore it. On point six, the innate knowledge of God. Once we infer that this is not a doctrine which is first learned at school, but one as to which every man is from the womb his own master. Point breaks down the belief in God is not a taught doctrine, it is an inherent aspect of human nature. Every individual possesses an innate understanding of God's existence from birth. Even as people try to suppress it or forget it, this knowledge persists. In everyday language, Calvin is explaining that the idea of believing in God isn't something you only learn in school. It's more like a part of who you are from your very beginning. This belief is so natural, it's like it's built into us. Think about when you were a baby. You didn't need anyone to teach you how to grab onto things or roll over. These abilities seem to just come naturally. Similarly, Calvin is saying that the belief in God is something that's just there from the start, much like those early instincts you had as a baby. In Psalm 139, verses 13 and 14, the Bible speaks that the idea of God knows us, that God knows us even before we're born. Where it says, For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well. This verse emphasizes how God is involved in creating us right from the start. It suggests that there's a deeper understanding within us, even before we're born. So when Calvin talks about this belief being from the womb, he speaks that it's something you're born with. It's not like a subject you study in school. It's a part of you from the very beginning, and just as you don't forget how to grab things or roll over, you can't easily forget this innate understanding of God's existence, even if you try to push it away. It's a bit like that natural instinct that sticks with you even as you grow up. Point 7, the purpose of human life. Moreover, if all are born and live for the express purpose of learning to know God, the primary purpose of God's existence is to come to know God. Those who fail to pursue this knowledge fail to fulfill their essential purpose, and the pursuit of knowing God is integral to a meaningful life. John Calvin is explaining that one of the main reasons we're born and live is to understand and connect with God. It's like a key part of why we exist. Let's see some everyday goals, like career goals. Imagine you're choosing a career. You might consider what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, and what gives you a sense of purpose. Now think about Calvin's point. Understanding and connecting with God is a bit like a career goal for humans. It's something that gives life meaning and direction. Where in Jeremiah chapter 29, it talks about seeking God with your whole heart. In verse 13, it says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." This verse suggests that when we genuinely look for God, we can find Him. It's like saying that pursuing a connection with God is something that can give our lives true purpose. So when Calvin talks about our essential purpose, he means that understanding and knowing God is a core reason for our existence. It's like finding that meaningful career that aligns with your passions and skills. Just as a fulfilling career gives you a sense of purpose and direction, pursuing a relationship with God can bring a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose to your life. Point 8, transformation through the knowledge of God. This did not escape the observation even of philosophers, for it is the very thing which Plato meant. Philosophers such as Plato recognized the transformative power of knowing God. The ultimate good for the soul lies in becoming more like God through knowledge. Knowledge of God has the potential to bring about a profound inner change. Calvin is explaining that even philosophers like Plato understood how knowing God can change a person for the better. It's like a powerful force that can make your soul grow and become more like God. Let's uh, break this down with role models. Think about someone you look up to, maybe a teacher, a parent, or a famous figure. You might admire their qualities and want to be more like them. Similarly, Calvin is saying that knowing God is like having the ultimate role model. Learning about God's character and ways can inspire us to become better people. In 2 Corinthians 3:18, where the Holy Spirit speaking through Paul is talking about the transformation of knowing God. And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. This verse talks about how, as we focus on God, we become more like Him. It's like looking at a role model and adopting their qualities over time. So when Calvin talks about a transformative power of knowing God, he means that learning about God's goodness, love, and wisdom can shape us into better individuals. It's like how spending time with a positive role model can inspire you to develop your good qualities. Just as we can change for the better by emulating role models, knowing God can lead to a profound inner change that reflects His character. It should also be pointed out that what we put into our minds is what shapes our character. So you're not going to be an overly optimistic, cheerful, caring person if the only thing you watch are slasher movies and torture porn and like all the filth and degeneracy that's coming out of Hollywood and stuff, compared to like somebody who spends all their time watching like documentaries and lectures and reruns of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. These two people are going to have radically different personalities because of the content they put into themselves. The more you concentrate on God and the scriptures, the more it's going to change you within your very inner being, reshape your thought life, reshape everything, including like your worldview, how you look at people, how you look at yourself, how you view morals and ethics and situations you get into. So the more we pursue God, the more we are going to emulate his character. On to point 9, the necessity of religion for human existence. Thus, Gryllus also in Plutarch reasons most skillfully when he affirms that if once religion is banished from the lives of men, the absence of religion leads to human misery and wretchedness. Religion distinguishes humans from animals, providing a path to transcending suffering. Worshipping God is the essential factor that elevates human existence and grants them the possibility of immortality. Calvin is explaining that without religion, humans would feel miserable and lost. Religion sets humans apart from animals and gives them a way to rise above their troubles. So let's look at the historical context for Gryllus and Plutarch, along with some relevant Bible verses. Imagine you're lost in a dense forest without any direction. It's a scary feeling because you have no way to find your way out. Religion, in a way, is like a guiding compass. It gives people a sense of direction and purpose, helping them navigate through the challenges of life. In the quote, Gryllus refers to a character in a work by Plutarch, a Greek philosopher and historian. Plutarch's story tells of Gryllus, a character who was turned into a pig. The story metaphorically explores the idea that if humans abandon higher values and live solely for physical pleasure, they can be reduced to the level of animals. This aligns with Calvin's point about the necessity of religion. In Proverbs 14:12, the Holy Spirit speaking through King Solomon says, "There is a way that seems right to man, but its end is the way to death." There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. This verse suggests that without a guidance or moral compass, people can easily go down paths that lead to negative outcomes. So when Calvin talks about the absence of religion leading to human misery and wretchedness, he's saying that without a sense of purpose and higher values, people can feel lost and empty, like being lost in a forest without a compass. The story of Gryllus underscores this idea. If humans neglect their spiritual dimension, they can lose what sets them apart from animals. Religion and worshiping God elevates human life, providing direction, purpose, and the hope of something greater, even beyond this life. Just look at secular world today and how non-religious our culture and society as a whole is. We are obsessed with like hedonism, and people are miserable constantly. They're looking for ways out of this misery through psychiatric drugs, through narcotics. Like, people are dying left, right, and center from fentanyl. Like, this stuff is apparently more addictive and destructive than heroin, and people are still doing this. Why? Because society has become a nihilistic cesspool, void of any virtue. It has no values other than consume, consume, consume. And so society is becoming more and more wretched and vile and evil. And if you listen to like addicts and or read through the literature of the 12-step programs out there, they talk about something called the law of diminishing returns, where you need stronger and stronger doses of whatever you're hooked on in order to feel satisfied. People who get into like on a cultural level, you can see this with the development of pornography. When I was introduced to pornography when I was a kid, it was Playboy centerfolds from back in the 70s and 1980s, bit into the early 90s, right? That's what mainstream pornography was today. Today, in 2023, if you go to the main page of Pornhub, the largest pornography distribution website in the world, and it's like the YouTube of porn, and you look up the top channels, you are going to find things that 20 years ago you'd have to like be an expert in searching the deepest, darkest parts of the web to find. You'll find Pornhub channels called things like Bratty Sis, Daddy's Little Angel, Family Lust, like, and that's just illegal everyday stuff being produced by big companies. Who the hell knows what's going on with the cell phones that are labeled with similar titles? Cell phone videos. Like, it's just pure. unadulterated evil. Our society is so sick and evil, and it's because we have abandoned God. We no longer place any actual emphasis on having virtue. And you can hear this in like the big popular preachers of the day, who have millions and millions of listeners, with the very rare exception they never talk about sanctification. The most popular guys are people who are like, God will get you money, God will get you health, God will get you wealth, God will give you superpowers. It's all this garbage that has no functional purpose in elevating human existence. There is no longer an emphasis on sanctification. There is no emphasis on virtue anymore. That's why society is so full of miserable people. We no longer place an emphasis on virtue. And things need to change. There needs to be a serious working of the Holy Spirit to just come in and just knock sense into people. We need to start pursuing virtue now, not health, wealth, and superpowers. That's not what God promises us. God saves people for the purpose of sanctification. What does it say in Thessalonians? This is the will of God, your sanctification. All right. We are not called to God in order to gain the ability to babble nonsense gibberish, like blah, 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 blah. That's not a gift from the Holy Spirit. All right. I've been through enough like occult and supernatural experiences that mumbling idiotic gibberish that is not even a real language, that's not from the Holy Spirit. That's not even remotely impressive enough. Like, I've come across tarot readers who can do better than that, and they aren't bringing anything from God either. So, pursue holiness, not superpowers. In hearts of mortals, deity takes root. A sense profound, innate, forever there. A truth that lives, untaught by mind or flute. As time unfolds, this belief doesn't wear, nor fades away, but stands the test of years. Though scoffers jest, the conscience whispers fair. A Sardonian grin may hide their fears, yet deep within a struggle never dies, a torment veiled by skepticism's sneers. Gryllus' tale, Plutarch's ink on ancient skies, a pig transformed, a warning to mankind. Without true faith, our soul's light slowly dies. But worship lifts us, souls no longer blind, to rise above and touch celestial spheres. In God's embrace, our true purpose we find. Until next time, continue to follow Jesus, who is the way.